Shalom. In Parashat Korach, we read of the rebellion of Korach against the authority of Hashem himself. It really wasn't Moshe and Aaron with whom he had a bone to pick. It was really the authority of Hashem, and he was driven by his massive ego. He wanted all the power and the glory for himself. He wasn't really thinking about the needs of the people, nor was he thinking about the will of Hashem. He was driven by an obsession of his place and what he could gain from the situation. He was incapable of understanding the selfless nature of Moshe and Aaron, and that indeed it wasn't Moshe's idea, but it was an eternal covenant that Hashem had established with the tribe of Levi. So God set up Korach, as it were, and in a very public setting, Korach and his followers were punished and they disappeared from the stage. Afterwards, God again emphasized the unique singularity of Aaron through the miracle of the staff of Aaron that blossomed with almond blossoms in order to emphasize the eternity of God's relationship with Aaron. And later, as we read the verses that describe, again, the duties of Aaron and the gifts that are due to the Kohanim, we read this verse. We read that regarding the relationship with Aaron, we read, "Everything that is set aside from the sacrifices from the children of Israel, raise up to Hashem, have I given to you and your sons and daughters with you as an eternal portion. It is an eternal salt-like covenant before Hashem for you and your offspring with you." And the words in Hebrew are Brit Melech Olam. It is an eternal covenant of salt. What is the significance of salt? This is a very unique verse, and we don't find another similarity to this throughout the entire Torah, where the relationship, the covenant that was established by God with Aaron and his descendants for all time is compared to salt. Salt is an element, and under the proper circumstances, it will last forever. It preserves. Some say this is emphasized also because of the presence, the necessity of salt in all of the korbanot, the offerings. So this covenant that God had actually made with Aaron, which was proven now before the eyes of the entire congregation through the episode of Korach, this covenant is compared to salt. But wait, actually, there is one more verse in the Torah, so scratch that, there are two verses in the Torah that refer to an eternal covenant of salt. One is here regarding Aharon and this covenant that he has with God. And there is one other individual whom the Torah tells us has an eternal covenant of salt with God. And that individual, of course, is King David. We read in 2 Chronicles, "Surely you should know that Hashem, God of Israel, gave kingship over Israel to David forever, to him and his children for a covenant of salt." So, two verses in the Torah that somehow employ this vehicle of salt to express eternity, to express a decision that God made that he will never rescind, to express the unique nature of these individuals and their descendants for all time. It's an eternal covenant of salt. So that was inaccurate that I threw out that this is the only verse, because actually there is the verse of Aaron in our Parsha, and there's a verse regarding King David. And those are the only two verses in the Torah that compare a covenant to salt. But when we really think about it, we might be reminded of another person, of another situation in the Torah where there is salt as a strong descriptor of that person, albeit not at all in the context not at all with the power and the beauty and the significance of these eternal covenants, but of course, we're thinking about the wife of Lot. Back in Genesis, where we read about the upheaval of Sodom and Amorah, we read that the wife of Lot, who was told not to look back, indeed, she did look back, and she was transformed into a pillar of salt. Whatever that means, our sages tell us that this actually was midah keneged midah. This punishment was measure for measure, because the wife of Lot was a stingy, inconsiderate hostess, and she was very critical of her husband Lot, who was careful about the commandment of hospitality. He brought in guests and fed them, and he insisted that he give salt to his guests for their food. And she said to him, "This bad character trait, this bad habit you have brought here as well, that you insist on giving the guests salt." And what's really the significance of all of this? Rashi tells us regarding the eternal covenant of salt with Aaron that salt is something that doesn't spoil. Salt is something that lasts forever. But moreover, salt is something that not only preserves, but it also brings health. It also can effect health for others. It also sanitizes. And we think about Aaron, and we think about the attributes by which Aaron is described, that he loved peace, that he pursued peace, and that he brought others to Torah, he brought others to Hashem. He was so careful and considerate to always be there for other people, to encourage other people in their relationships. And we think about these attributes of Aaron, and we think about the character of David and the role of Mashiach, and then we compare these figures and what the salt represents, the eternal covenant of salt, regarding a David and regarding an Aaron, and we think about the wife of Lot, and we realize that the Torah here is teaching us in a very subtle way, once again, that everything in this world is about choices. It's about the decisions that we make. It's about transforming the attributes that we have into something that is lasting, into something that won't spoil, but also into something that will be of a benefit to others. From that salt, what can grow? Ironically, when the wife of Lot was turned into a pillar of salt, this is seen as a symbol of something that is lifeless, of something that will never change, of something from which no growth can sprout forth. But when it comes to the very eternal nature of life itself, which is ascribed to both Aaron and the line of Kohanim and the line of David, Mashiach, redemption for the whole world, that's also described in terms of salt. But as opposed to the lifelessness of the wife of Lot, this salt is the salt that preserves, the salt that also brings health to others. And so the Torah, in its subtle way, is showing us how the path is open before the individual to take the attributes that we have and to transform them into something that is life-giving, to something that is preserving and positive for others. But the same thing could also become something that is selfish, become something that is egotistical, and become something that has no benefit to anyone else. And the choice is up to us.